how I knew you were the one for me was because you were the first person that ever forced me to see someone else's perspective. You forced me to see someone else's perception. You forced me to see someone else's point of view.
That was hard. That was one of my challenges with you.
Let's get it. Shannon on the shirt.
Tupac on mine. I really got to get a shirt with you on it.
Yeah, I know. Let's see how it is. Well, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Who Can Relate. A little twist here. This is going to be a new segment series into Who Can Relate. I'm not sure what I'm going to call it yet, but basically it is my wife and I on the couch.
Home series.
Home series. Okay. Who Can Relate home series. I like it. And we're going to be talking about all things our relationship, our past experiences while single, and also our past experiences while, earlier stages on in our marriage and in our relationship as well. And yeah, so you guys know me. If you remember my better half, my beautiful better half, I was going to say that in the tongue twister. And then this is Playa.
Yeah. He's charging us by the hour, so we got to hurry up.
This is Chicago. Okay, so we're going to kick off this home series, this segment, with how we knew we were the one for each other. Honey?
I was like, I'm still trying to figure that out. I'm just kidding. You are the one, babe.
Keeping your receipts.
You always say that about me, but.
All right, so let's kick it off. What you got?
Yeah, I think for me, when I knew that you were the one, and I kind of touch on this in my vows, is you were the first guy that I've ever felt so challenged and inspired to love at the same time.
I was going to say, you'd think it'd be the opposite. Like, you were the one who challenged me the most, and that's why you're my ex, Like,
no, I feel like, it's a good challenge is a good thing. Like when someone, when you're in a relationship that kind of forces you to look at yourself in the mirror, you're in a good relationship. Yeah. A lot of people see that as a negative thing though.
Yeah. So there's healthy.
Because they're afraid to look at themselves because they're afraid to dissect their flaws and have to work on them.
Totally. So what you're saying is there's a difference between like negative challenges and healthy challenges.
Absolutely.
Right. So I was a healthy challenge for you. Is that what you're saying? Okay. So I'll piggyback off of that because that's actually something I tell a lot of our friends and a lot of people who are interested in our relationship is I always say, thankfully Shay was able to hold that space for me. She was able to be patient enough to allow me to get my stuff together, to really work on my patterns, work on my triggers. So luckily you were able to hold that space. It says a lot about you. And a lot of people can't do that.
No.
So let's say there's someone out there who is struggling with, the waiting game, like, girl, I'm trying, but he is just either taking too long or I'm at my last,
I think you have to definitely see something in someone in order to have that space for them. I think with you, it was definitely challenging.
But how did you know that I was going to be that healthy challenge? How did you know that, like you could see the potential in somebody, but that doesn't mean that they're going to live up to that potential. No. So how did you have that faith?
I think like anything in life, you definitely take somewhat of a risk. And I think that for me with you, I saw potential. I saw your light of awareness turning on, and I saw that you wanted to make a change and be different. And I think without that, I don't know that I would have been able to move forward. There was a lot of times where we would have disagreements, and I was frustrated, and I would give you your space. And I'm like, if he can't come correct, I'm not even going to continue.
Yeah.
But you would come correct.
Yeah. Well, thankfully. And I think if I can just help, the women listening as to how did I come correct.
Sorry.
It's my wife's phone rings. Maybe you should go on Do Not Disturb, honey.
I know, maybe I should, but I do,
This is our home series. You could tell we're very laid back here. Cell phones ringing.
I'm still on the clock.
Drinking, green juice. But no, to help the people out, I knew that deep down I needed to make changes. Mm-hmm. And as I said many times before on this show, that you were kind of the catalyst and a huge motivation for me, like the light at the end of the tunnel for me to want to make that change. Mm-hmm. And again, I always specify and try to clarify. I didn't necessarily change for you. Mm-hmm. I knew I was changing for myself, and that you were like the cherry on top. You were like the bonus, you were like, oh man, and I get to have the woman that I've dreamed about and manifested, like even better, even more of a reason. Right. But I think ultimately for the guys out there listening and watching, you guys have to change for yourself first and foremost. Don't ever change for anybody else. Because let's say I changed for you, right? So guys, if I'm over here changing for Shay, and let's say, God forbid, Shay and I don't work out, the person I changed to become that makes sense for her may not make sense for the next girl.
Not only that, but there's you lose the
authenticity.
Yeah, you lose that. And I think that for me, I would have, you are who you are when no one's looking. I always say that. And I feel like if you're changing for me, you're only going to be that person in front of me. Yeah. But behind closed doors, you're still going to be you. So you have to change for yourself, because you want to be that person, whether you're in front of everyone or you're changing for that person, or it's completely who you are choosing to be behind closed doors when no one's looking.
Yes. And that's the change that's going to be sustainable, because again, if you changed for me or I changed for you, that's not going to last, because I'm just like guessing as I go along. If I make to the core necessary change, like in my soul change, whether it's you or someone else, I know I changed, for what I needed to get myself together with. Now it's like customizing it, catering it to you and uplifting you and loving you the way you need and want to be loved, right? Yeah.
And another thing, when you change for somebody, you risk the possibility of building up resentment for that change.
Talk about it, babe.
So, it's definitely important just to stay true to yourself and change for yourself, so that way you don't build up that resentment towards the other person, because you're like, well, I'm this person, I'm changing for you. Mm-hmm. So,
I'm gonna help you out a little bit. Make sure people. Try that.
Is it gonna just go down now?
No, it's not gonna go limp. It's going to hold up strong, honey, as long as you need it to. You know what I'm saying?
Good.
Okay, so just recapping, like how you knew I was the one for you, just to bullet point it a little bit more clear. What would you say are some of the top things?
I would say you were the first one that made me kind of look at myself. You challenged me to dig deeper within, and just inspired me also to like love and be better, and just really,
So let's dive into that, because that's really important, because I think, again, like my initial reaction right now was like, well, when you said challenge, I was like, a lot of people are like, girl, he's too challenging. Like, I'm out, because I think a lot of people are afraid to take that hard look in the mirror. You were like, it's time. So, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, right? Because the way you were in past relationships, right? Like how you used to date and how you used to be a girlfriend before, as you said, and you unpack it now, but how you used to say, I never really dated with the intention of like a long-term idea of it.
There was definitely a period in my life where I was at one point in a very long relationship. Yeah. And when I got out of that, as much as I love being in a relationship and I love love, I was very selective of who I even got to a point of calling my boyfriend. Like when I saw somebody as my boyfriend, I was like future husband. Yeah. I was already looking at them as that aspect. So if I couldn't put you in that category, I wouldn't even go down the road of calling you my boyfriend.
But you would still be in
but
a
I would
relationship?
still date. Like there was people that I would date for long periods of time, but I just wouldn't title it because I felt like with that title came so much more.
But what did the guy think throughout this?
I mean, I had a particular guy tell me I have a very weird way of dating, but it was something that for me at that time, I just, I don't think I had the awareness that I was doing that for like, I hadn't gotten to the point where I was digging deeper in myself of like, why do I not want to title this? What are my fears and triggers behind that? And I think it was just, I was afraid to get that close to somebody again. So I found ways to protect myself, whether it was dating the wrong person or dating guys that I knew I couldn't get to that level with.
Yeah.
Or not titling the relationship and just kind of making it as casual as I possibly can to control it in the ways that I was able to control it.
Okay. I'm processing it. I'm kind of thinking, I'm just then letting it marinate. I have some follow-up questions to that.
Okay.
Did you date that way because you didn't want to really work on yourself? Like it was a distraction for yourself?
I think I wasn't aware of my fears at that time. I think I had a lot of fears at that time, but I just wasn't aware enough to recognize like what they were.
Did I make you become aware?
I actually started my journey years before you, and so I knew I did then get to a point where I knew that I was still afraid to be in, not that I was afraid to be in a relationship, but I just wanted to, I was very selective with who I was going to give that part of myself to.
Okay.
So there's literally like maybe 2 guys in my whole entire life that I've given myself my all to. And one was like the very first relationship I was in, but that doesn't say a lot because I was so young. Yeah. And then there's you. So.
Okay. I got it. So you're kind of still like learning as you go then, it kind of sounds like, right? Because your last serious relationship, the other guy you gave your all to, you were really young. You were a totally different person than you are today. Yeah. So do you think you're kind of going with the flow and going as you, learning as you go kind of thing?
Probably. I mean, there was a lot of things that when you and I started dating that I kind of, like became aware of that I didn't know.
Yeah.
Whether it was triggers, but because I have done so much work prior to you coming along, I was ready to identify that. Whereas to before, I never even identified it. I would just check out or,
So what was it with me that made you want to start identifying it, made you want to, for me to be the guy you would give your all to?
Yeah. Well, it was even before you, I knew I was now at a place to find somebody to give that part of myself to the point where I stopped dating prior to you, where I was like no longer dating casually. I was now dating like, where is my husband?
Right. Okay.
So here comes that's why, going back to the first time I saw your Instagram and I'm scrolling through the photos and I see your towel dropping photo that I was like, yeah, that's not my husband. Cause I was in that place.
Let's talk about that for a second. Cause I'm tired of you saying that. Okay. Here's your context. Okay. So Shay and I met on Instagram. And she's doing her research and scrolling through my page of the, say, 400 photos. You pick the one that you're like, see, this is why. The 399 are okay. Great guy, seems like it, looks like a great father, got a good relationship with his mom, good relationship with his family. But that one photo where he's modeling, which is my profession, and I had only a blanket on.
About to fall off. Disclaimer.
And you're like, see, he's not my husband. And I bring that up because I feel like there's a lot of girls and guys out there, because I was definitely one of them, that I was like looking for the any and one thing. Then I'm like, see, this is why I had to put my finger on something. I would do that because I was scared. Okay. Because I was like, be careful what you wish for kind of thing. But when I met you, I was the opposite. I wasn't ready. I had just started my journey of doing the work. Yeah. So I remember thinking like she is her, but I don't know if I'm ready yet, because I know what she's going to be worth. I know what her value is. I know what she deserves. I don't know if I have the capability today to give that, which is why I was always transparent with you and saying all of the above to you from jump. But again, for the people out there who are so picky, like Okay, let's this is not in the script, but let's go into it. It's home series. You weren't too fond of dating someone who had kids.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like even stuff like that where you have this perfect list of like, he has to be this, he has to, it's like, how did you kind of let go of that list a little bit?
Well, prior to even meeting you, I had already gotten to a point where I was opening myself up to
How do you do that?
That I normally wasn't either attracted to. I dated people that I was like initially not even attracted to, but they had something about them that was special. And even that, like before my list like was like, okay, they got to be of this height. They have to like not have kids, have never been married, and all these other things. But I got to a point where I was like, okay, I have to just be open.
Sure.
I can't have like, obviously you're going to have hard no's.
Right.
When it comes to like the connection and stuff like that, but there was some things that I'm like, I have to be open to, and I opened myself up to that. So as much as I'm like, not my husband, I still opened myself up to, you know, because one of my things was I never wanted to date somebody in like that kind of industry.
Right.
I've been there, done that, don't want to do it again. And I think, but as much as I was like, that's not my husband, I still allowed you that opportunity to show me who you are behind the towel dropping photo.
Right. And correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the things I always told you about my profession, and I tell everybody is, oh, go ahead.
It's not who you are. Right?
What else?
I forget.
It's not who I am, it's what I do.
Oh yeah. It's not who you are. It's what you do.
And, you know, to me, modeling is just something that pays the bills, allows me to have a really nice, comfortable lifestyle. I don't have to work every day, so on and so forth. So, but it's just what I do. But anyways, yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there because I'm sure there's a lot of women, especially who I think are more particular sometimes than men when it comes to really settling down. You got to be more open. You got to, you know, let go of the reins a little bit. You know what I mean? There's no such thing as a perfect guy. There's no such thing as a perfect girl.
It's all subjective.
It's all, yeah, exactly. And that has a lot to do with what you were accustomed to and used to and, you know, so on and so forth. It's a whole nother episode. But getting back to the topic at hand.
So I definitely, you know, years before you, that's part of the work that I did was I opened myself up to things that I would normally close myself off to. Kids, another thing.
Yeah. So that's recapping for you, how you knew I was the one?
I saw so much potential.
Okay. Well, luckily I lived up to that potential because I feel like a lot of these girls are like, yeah, lucky for you. But most of the time, guys don't. And that's why I always say, like, you know, people will show you who they are. It's up to you whether or not you want to believe them. You know, so I'm happy that you took a bet and a risk on your boy and then I delivered.
I was a little desperate. I'm just kidding.
Whoa.
Just kidding, babe. You're perfect.
Okay, so my turn. How did
you know I was the one?
Yeah. I knew very early on. I knew way early on before you did. And I always tell the story about how you took care of me at that time in Hawaii. And that, I think now that I've, you know, we've been together for 3+ years, obviously there's more levels to it. That was like the first thing that I really was like, oh, I think I can trust her with everything, you know, and then I always said that the definition of love before I met you, the definition of love for me was if I can trust you, not with infidelity so much, but just like if I can trust you, like I have abandonment issues. So can I trust you that you're not going to leave me? Yeah. Can I trust you that when I'm sick, you can take care of me? Can I trust you that if something were to happen to me, you know, my daughter is going to be okay kind of thing, you know? So that trust for me means way more than like, are you going to cheat on me?
Yeah.
Past the Hawaii thing and into our relationship, especially in the bad times, how I knew you were the one for me was because you were the first person that ever forced me to see someone else's perspective. You forced me to see someone else's perception. You forced me to see someone else's point of view.
That was hard. That was one of my challenges with you.
And I just remember thinking like, I really want this to work. I'm really going to try. And so all of that equates to you were worth the fight to me. Like I was going to fight to the death, not at you, but with you, you know, like we were going to get through this together. I'm going to do my part to really make sure I'm doing my part. And I knew I can trust that you were going to do the same for me. So I knew you were the one when I started rethinking a lot of things. I started changing my old patterns. I started changing my old ways. I started to become more and more aware of the work that I needed to do. Again, you were the light at the end of my tunnel. I was already on that journey of me wanting to change for the better, to become the best version of myself. And then I met you and it was just like, oh man, like this is the perfect time. If not now, when? So I knew you were the one because I knew you were worth fighting for. You were worth me ultimately changing who I needed to be in a relationship for. And more importantly, if you guys remember anything from this, remember this. I knew you deserved the best version of myself. What I mean when I say that is, it's not to say I didn't give the best version of myself in past relationships, but I also knew I didn't live up to my full potential. I knew I was just kind of getting by, whether it's because of my looks, because of my mouthpiece, because of the lifestyle I had, or I knew I could finagle my way. I didn't really have to actually try. With you, I was like, it doesn't matter how I look. It doesn't matter how well I can speak. It doesn't matter what my lifestyle is. None of that matters. Like, this girl is going to expose me. And I'm like, I got to get to work. And I was like, now is the time. Like, I'm going to really put it all on the line for her.
Me.
Does that make more sense?
Yes.
Do you have anything to say?
No, thank you. I think that my comment came off of, I think, something you posted, and I was like, it was
the Sarah episode.
Yeah. And I forgot what the exact quote of what you said was. I knew she was the one because she was the one that I wanted to give.
She deserved the best version of myself.
Yeah. And I feel like you should always be the best version of yourself, whether someone deserves it or not. Or not because someone deserves it or not, but because that's just who you are behind closed doors when no one's looking.
Sure.
Going back to my.
But you gave the best version of yourself to the first guy you gave all of yourself to, right? But that version of yourself, some 10 plus years ago, is not going to be the best version of yourself today.
Absolutely no, because you grow and you evolve.
That's my point.
Yeah.
So all the growth and evolving that I had done when I was 30 and I met you, that's what I mean. I was like, oh, so now I have this, I'm going to take it to another level, and she deserves that.
But what I think, and we can touch on this, what I think happened is you got to, there's also a point that people get to where they have the awareness. But then there needs to be, with the awareness, is the effort.
The action.
And the action, exactly.
Consistently.
And so when you were in your last relationship, you got to a point where you started to become aware, whether it was fully or halfway or whatever, you started to become aware. But you didn't want to put in that work for her at that time. Yeah. Because it was easier, and we've talked about this before, it was easier for you to highlight the negative stuff about her to help her work on her self versus you being able to like walk yourself into a mirror and point the finger at yourself. For sure. I'm going to give Why do you think you did that?
First, I'm going to give you some love with some light. Hold on.
Am I losing my glow?
Gotta get you set up, babe. Home series. This is first of all, this is great.
We got the tallest windows.
I am so relaxed. I'm just like, if something goes off, it goes off. It's just like, this is great. Okay.
We also live next to a fire station, so luckily now
that you jinxed it, it'll happen. Repeat the question, please.
So why do you think that although you started to become aware in your last relationship, you weren't putting in the work? And you weren't looking at yourself in the mirror like, okay, I need to change. Were you already checked out at that point?
Two reasons. So one, yes, I was already checked out, and I knew, again, like I wasn't going to not waste the best version of myself that I knew I could give, but I knew she wasn't it for me. So I'm like, I'm kind of wasting my time and her time moving forward because I'm ready to go, kind of thing. But the second thing I think is because I could still get away with all my distractions, my, trying to think,
manipulating,
gaslighting, here you go. This is JD package. I knew I could get away with that with her. So I was like, I'm just going to keep doing it because it's easy. I don't have to put the work in. I don't have to look in the mirror. Again, with you, I knew you like.
Well, you did try to get away with some of that stuff with me in the beginning.
Early on, I definitely did.
Yeah.
I was taking the same me into a new relationship, expecting a new result. And that's what I'm saying. When you would check me time after time, I was like, okay, it was almost like you like took my hand, walked me to the mirror and was like, take a hard look at yourself. Stay here until you figure it out. I'm gonna be in the other room waiting for you. Like if I could use that kind of metaphor, because that's kind of how I felt.
What do you think it takes for a man to get to although the woman is walking him to the mirror, what do you think it takes from a man to actually do the work at that point?
He has to want to. He has to want to.
For himself or for the relationship or both?
He may think initially it's for the relationship, but he needs to be very clear that it's for himself. Because the better he is for himself, the better he will be in relationship, right? Yeah. So he has to want to. And even if he does want to, I'll take it a step further and doesn't know how, right? Don't revert back to your old ways. Don't get frustrated. Don't quit. Don't give up, right? Because again, you're just going to keep repeating this same bad pattern because clearly it's not working for you. So he's got to be consistent with the work, you know, like just because we're married doesn't mean the work stops for me, you know, like it's a different kind of work, but it's still work. Yeah. In fact, it's probably harder. Because in the past, when I would date or would be in a serious relationship, I always knew, or felt at least, that the girl I was with, no matter who it was besides you, they were replaceable.
You know, that's funny that you say that because for a very long time in the beginning of our relationship, I always felt that I was just somebody that was being placed into your ideal life where you had like, you already had your life figured out and your whole like, where it was like, okay, I'm going to get this wife. I'm going to have these two kids, boy and girl. Here are their names. Yeah. And we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And here comes me. And it's like, I was just like
placed in there.
Yeah. Where I never, for a long time, I didn't feel like it was something that you wanted with me, but you more so just wanted that life. And anybody that would have came along, it could have been a different person. I could have been a different person. You would have put that person in that place. Yeah. And it took me a while to really learn where that was coming from within you. And then also to really feel that it wasn't what I thought it was.
So let me ask you a question with kind of your question. Why do you think I was like that? Why do you think I had that mentality of just, oh, I'm going to have these kids. I'm going to live here. I'm going to do this. Insert wife. Why do you think I had that?
Because you didn't have it growing up.
I'm going to respectfully correct you.
Okay.
That has something to do with it. But the main thing is I was a crazy control freak. I wasn't willing. I could see that, yeah.
I could definitely see that. And I should have probably answered with that. I was trying to be nice on your show.
Yeah, no, honey, this is our series, no. Love.
I could see that. I could see it being a control thing because I did very much, you know, I would talk to a lot of my friends about it and it felt like everything was on your time. Everything was
on my terms.
On your terms. It didn't feel, in the beginning, it didn't feel organic. It felt like it was, you already had the idea of what it was going to be and that's what it was going to be.
That's what I wanted to happen. You know, I'm being honest, that's how I wanted it to happen back then. I mean, remember like when we first talked, I feel like we've told this story a million times. We can have a whole episode about like the first time we actually talked because it's pretty wild. But just to dive into it really quick, our very first conversation was 6 hours. And what was I talking about on that call?
Just all the plans that you had.
And I was
Would you move to Chicago? How many kids do you want? And it was very, as a matter of fact, to the point of what you were looking for.
Yeah, very black and white. And it's kind of like, if you didn't want to move to Chicago, if you didn't want to have this amount of kids, if you weren't okay with doing things the way I'm comfortable doing them, it wasn't going to work. That's who I used to be. Yeah. Fast forward to today. And actually, I shouldn't even say fast forward because God, the amount of work that went into that fast forward. I realized one thing, and I first heard it from Esther Perel. You're either going to be right all the time or you're going to be married.
And happy.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, that makes total sense. Because I was always, quote unquote, right all the time in my relationships, but I wasn't in a happy, successful relationship, you know, and insert now marriage. I'm like, oh man, okay. Like, it's not even that, you know, I don't care to be right. It's not even about that, but you and I have something that I would love everyone to know, which is it's not about who's right or wrong. It's about what is right or wrong for our marriage at the time, our relationship.
Yeah.
That is easier said than done, depending on the ego that you have.
Especially when you're in the moment of chaos and fighting and the flames are on each side. And it's hard to recognize that because everybody naturally gets defensive.
And they get defensive because the triggers from their past.
And
right?
they're not aware
so for you and I
of that. Exactly.
So for you and I, that was a big part of our relationship early on, right? You and I have a very much so like independent, I want you, but I don't need you personality. So because of that, when we would disagree, we would actually pull apart and like be like all systems into defense mode. You're not cracking this wall kind of thing, you know? And as our marital therapist told us, you guys need to work on coming together as opposed to going apart when you fight. But that is so much easier said than done because my whole life, if I feel attacked, I'm out. I don't even have to have a conversation. I'm just going to cut you off. That's me. You work. Well, go ahead. You can speak.
I feel like I'm kind of the same, but we, you know, you get loud and I get quiet.
Yeah.
So that's where we're different. But as far as like whenever I felt like something was so challenging or I wasn't, you know, what you just said, I would be easy to just shut down and cut a person off and can go about my day and like, you know, just be like, okay.
And with that, like what's the, how do things get resolved? You know, so that was definitely a learning curve for us, you know, but then again, like I said, you know, I remember thinking you are the one to fight for. Excuse me. You are the one that I'm like, this is what I used to do. And it obviously got me in the situation I was in, which was single constantly, time after time. I'm like, I have to switch it up, you know, but again, it's way easier because between my ego and maybe someone's pride, luckily you are very selfless. You are very forgiving. You are very patient, which is the only reason why this probably works is because you are all three of those things. Because
and aware, not just of myself, but I became aware of you and your triggers. And I think that's also very important to do when you're with somebody in any kind of relationship, whether it's like even your own, if you have like some sort of negative relationship, even with a parent, I think it's important to understand where your mom or dad comes from and why they could be the way that they are, because it gives you more insight. So I think that's what I did with you is I not only was aware of things about myself, but I became aware of things about you, whether it was, you know, having conversations with your mom and just learning more deeper into your root of your childhood and same with you and see what triggers you. Yeah. And I think for me, the hardest thing in the beginning was you had so much hurt and anger inside of you. And some of your reasons at the time that I felt like you carried all this childhood trauma, I felt like they were so minimal compared to what a lot of other people went through. And that was hard for me to realize that, you know, I didn't want to dismiss your feelings or how you felt, but I did feel that they were like, I felt like you were choosing to focus on such little things and make them bigger than what they were. And I think what I learned in this relationship with you is it doesn't matter what somebody goes through and how small it may seem to you, it's how it affected them. And I think I saw that there were certain things in your childhood that really affected you and you were carrying through into, you know, your adult years. And I have to recognize that, and I have to respect it and create a level of understanding behind it, because that's only going to help us.
I have to take a moment here, because the fact that you understood that and understand that, not only does it mean the world to me, it definitely did then, and it, God help us, it does now. But for everyone out there, like, that's the perfect answer for why we knew we were the ones for each other. I think everyone just wants a quick, like, well, this is why, and then this is why, happily ever after.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that. Like, my wife is telling you she dug deep into my childhood before I dug deep into my childhood. You understood things about me that I felt but couldn't articulate. You know, like, this is why we're married. This is why you're the one. Like, we should have let's just redo this and let me ask it again. You give that answer. But this is exactly why. It is not a plug and play system like I thought it was.
That's a never ending thing that you have to do when you're in a relationship, because you and your partner hopefully are constantly evolving into a better version of yourself every day. So every day you want to relearn things about your partner. And I think that's what keeps a relationship alive too.
Totally. I mean, it's never going to be boring.
Yeah.
That's for sure. I think the other important thing to touch on is that, you know, as we talked to one of our friends earlier this morning, try to help her out with some stuff. You know, one of the pieces of advice I gave her, and we try this, is you want to learn how to fight with your person. And fight is like maybe the wrong word, but for lack of a better word, I don't mean it in a negative way. I just mean like you're going to fight.
It's inevitable that you are going to come to a crossroad with your significant other. And it's when you come to that crossroad, how you guys can cross that road together.
Say that again, love. Say it again. Say it again.
It's when you come to that crossroad, how you can cross that road together. Is what is going to show you.
And that's the thing. So I think for us, it's like there's times where you grab my hand and you're like, let's cross this road together. There's times I grab your hand. I'm like, you know, I got you. Let's cross this road together. But that takes time. That takes arguments, disagreements, fights to learn that about that person. You know what I mean? So that ties it all beautifully together when I say, I knew you were the one worth fighting for and with, you know what I'm saying? So I think it's very important that people understand that, like, learn how your person fights, learn how they want to be communicated to, with, and also just learn how they need and want to receive messages. Like, so you touched on earlier, like, I get loud, right? And it's not like, I don't mean to yell. I'm just a very passionate person about sports, about anything I care about. Okay. Like, to the point where, like, you know that if I don't show anything, you're like, uh-oh. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's either really pissed or really checked out. Or if I'm like, we need to fix this, you're like, okay, cool. Like, he's, you know, engaged in this, you know? So,
but sometimes there's a difference. Like, you had a bad habit before of getting so loud that you couldn't even allow yourself to hear anything that I was saying. So right. Yeah. And my therapist taught me this, that the loudest in the room loses. You know, I said this on another episode, and it's so true. Not only do I lose, but then you don't stand a chance with me, because I can't even hear what you're saying. I can't even hear what's in my head, let alone hear what someone else is trying to put into my head. So I definitely have learned that there's a way to deliver my message, and it's not through who can get louder. But I mean, that's how I was raised, unfortunately. You know, the loudest in my household won all the time. But when I say won, I mean because the other person just shut down. And I took that as, ooh, that person won the fight. That person won the argument because the other person's done. That's not winning. That's actually losing. You know what's funny is, you know, when we would have something like that happen and I would just shut down and stay quiet,
I'd be like, yeah. And
then the next day or however many days later, I would try to talk to you about it, because I'm like, okay, maybe he's now in a place to receive what I'm saying. And you're like, we already talked about this. I'm like, you talked about this. Yeah. And you said what you needed to say, but now you're like, well, you didn't say anything, so I thought you agreed with me, so why are we still talking about it? And I'm like, it does not work like that. Just because I said that I understand you does not mean that I agree with you. I just understand your perspective. So now I need you to understand my perspective.
Sure. Yeah.
And that was a challenging thing for you, because you did not understand. You're like, if you understand me, then why are we still here?
What's there to talk about?
Yeah. I hated that. I was like, there was a point where that was probably the most frustrating to me, because it was just so challenging, because I'm like, because you know, I was at a point where I was like, I know he's smart.
Mm-hmm.
I know he has it in him. And there's something that was blocking you from just evolving onto the level that I needed you to be on. And I'm like, either I have to have a lot of patience because I know that he's going to get here, or I'm going to take a huge risk and this man is never going to get here.
Yeah.
And there was a gap for so long where I was on this level, you were on this level, and I'm like, come on, Justin, I know you have it in you, just come on.
Can I tell you why I knew?
Why? Tell me.
That, you know, I needed to make these changes and all that. I became aware. And not so much aware that I needed to make the change. I became aware of the common denominator as to why it wasn't working with anyone else. And that was, oh, so you mean to tell me that if it's not my way or the highway, that's not okay with you? Oh, you mean to tell me that like once I just go off on a rant as to why I think this is the way to do it, you know, so I was just like, oh, like I remember the moment you and I had a disagreement. And I remember when you were kind of like, hey, it's my turn to, you know, talk now. It's my turn to give you my perspective. And I swear to you, I remember looking at you as if you had like 4 heads. And I was like, what do you mean? And you were like, it's my turn to tell you how I feel.
And I said, I remember that. I said, once I heard you out, I was like, oh, we're having 2 different experiences. And I'm like, this makes sense why he feels the way he feels. And I was like, now that I've heard you out, I get why you're feeling how you feel, and you have your feelings are valid and you have every right to feel how you feel. But where I was coming from, and you're like, what do you mean where you were coming from?
Yeah.
I was
I'm really sorry to say this, but what I wholeheartedly meant when I said, what do you mean where you're coming from? I was like, why does it matter? Yeah. I'm sorry. Back then, thank God we can laugh about this now, but there's a lot of people out there who aren't laughing and they're like, this is me, this is who I am, or this is the guy that I'm with.
Yeah.
So in all seriousness, like I remember thinking like, what does it matter? Because my way is the correct way. Just see what I see and we're going to be fine. That's how I felt back then.
Yeah.
And until I became aware that that's not happy marriage life.
But it's not even I don't want people to think that just because you become aware of something, the chain, like it automatically like change, 100%. It goes away. Because I think you have had that embedded in you for so long that even now when we come against a disagreement and stuff, it still takes you a minute to be like, oh, okay, we're having a different experience. Okay. Yeah. So let me like really try to open myself up. And now that's a challenge, like to really open your perspective up to see somebody else's like point of view.
Look, it's hard. I'll be honest. And I can kind of walk you through what goes on in my mind when you and I are at a perfect example today. Yeah. You know, we were setting up and I try to keep some continuity and I wanted to be on the right side of people's screens. Yeah. And you're like, but I'd rather sit there. And I'm like, but it's continuity. And we were like going back and forth. And then I had to like turn the switch on in my head. And I was like, Justin, we're having 2 different experiences on the same event. Pick your battles and just find the compromise. You know what I'm saying? Like I have to actively turn that switch on in my head, talk to myself internally.
Well, that's
resolve
what I'm saying.
this.
So it's not just awareness that you have to have. You have
to
have awareness, and then you have to have the drive almost to put in that work. And that's the hardest part. That's where a lot of people check out.
That's when I said, when you asked me, when you take that walk to the mirror and you look in the mirror, for a man, what does he tell himself? Like, why would he want to? And I said, he has to want to. I want to make this work. I want to be the example to our kids that this is what a healthy, happy marriage is, because we didn't have that growing up. Yeah. So we're trying to break that curse and that chain, but it's a day by day process, right? There's not like, you know, the very black and white moment of like, Justin, all that you've worked for is right here. What are you going to do? It doesn't work like that. It's like I'm setting up for a little home series and we're at a disagreement. It's this time too. You know what I'm saying? So
what would you say for the people that get in relationships that then feel that, because there's some people that get to a point where they're aware or whatever, but then they feel like it's too much work though. So like, wouldn't you say it's going to be work with like no matter who you're with?
Yeah. And it's a good question. And I also want to add, like, how do you know how much work to put in with somebody, right?
Like the boundaries behind it.
Manage your expectations. Again, it's like, it's not if, it's when we are going to get into disagreement. Now, as you said earlier, you looked at me as like a healthy challenge. You were like, okay, let me just assess the situation. If I work on myself and Justin works on himself, together, we can just build a whole empire, right? As opposed to maybe you were like, if I work on myself, I have my part taken care of, but I just don't see Justin wanting to put the work in. He's still stuck on like, are you coming to Chicago? Are you okay with just having 2 kids? And, you know, for the record, you want 3, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, are you okay with living under my rules? Like, if you knew that, like you said earlier, you knew I was smart, you knew I had the potential, but if you don't see that potential in me, if you don't see the want to be better, then at what point is it shame on you for sticking around for too long? I showed you consistently that I was willing to put the work in at all cost, no matter what. In a day or 2, I would come correct. I'd come around and I'd be like, babe, I'm trying to get better. How do I learn?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
what I think too, what also really like gave me so much hope with you is like, I saw you doing the work when no one was looking. I saw you doing it, not just when we ended a fight and you're like, okay, well, I'm going to try to do this and I'm going to try to do that. You were doing it consistently. Like you were really seeking all the levels that you needed, whether it was in friends, trying to restructure your group of friends, reach out and have deep, vulnerable conversations with your friends about certain things. And you were gathering all that. You were ordering the right books. Like I saw you do all of that. And I think that was like, okay, like that gave me that space to hold for you more than what I had initially.
And that's what I mean by the consistent effort. You know, I knew I had to put it in. So it was like, for me, again, going back to your question of like, how do you know if you should stay or you should go, if you should continue to battle with this person, you know, you're going to have a feeling as you did. Your women's intuition. Come on now. That is undeniable. So when you, as my brother said, you know, he told me this a long time ago that if you don't know by now, you know.
Yeah. If
you don't know by now that this person is going to.
Song? I could hear music when you say that. No,
if you don't know by now, you know. I don't know.
Never mind. Go ahead.
Well, I don't know.
But
yeah, you know, it's like if you don't trust and believe that he or she's going to put that work in, that he or she's going to become aware, take that hard walk to the mirror and don't run from that mirror. Look at it. Come back to it every single day. And it's not go back to it every single day until you check all the boxes, because you're always going to be checking boxes. Again, as I said earlier, like, just because we're married now and I found my partner, it doesn't mean like I don't have to read anymore. It doesn't mean I don't have to listen to podcasts anymore. It doesn't mean I don't have to talk to my friends to get better. I'm always going to try to get better. I'm always going to try to be the husband and the man that you deserve.
There's probably a lot of girls that have been in relationships where they went through that experience and then they watched their significant other move on into another relationship, and then that relationship ended up working out, and that's the relationship that he changed for.
Right.
Like, how do you give those women the closure?
Yeah. Well, like I said, it's not them. It's not them. Like, women, you guys have to understand, men too, right? Let's not single out, but you guys have to understand that people come into your life for a reason. Some people are seasonal. Some people are for a lifetime.
Yeah.
And the seasonal ones, you can't take it personal. You can't think you were the problem the entire time. You may have been a problem some of the time, but you weren't the problem. Like, he was gaslighting you or manipulating you, or she was playing mind games with you and saying you're the problem this entire. That's not the truth. They are projecting what they have dealt with in their past onto you. You are a distraction. Instead of them fixing themselves, they were trying to fix you. They were trying to point the finger at you. And so I would tell them to not take it personal. There was something in the new woman or the new man that they could bring out of your ex. Same thing for us. Yeah. There was something that you embodied that you brought out the very best of me. And even if you brought it out of me and I tried to take it back because I was scared to be vulnerable and transparent, you were just like, no, come on, you're right here. You got it. So, and I had that trust that I could confide in you. I had that trust that I could be vulnerable and transparent with you. I couldn't be that way in the past because I didn't trust them.
I feel like for me, who I am today, if I became single again with who I am today, there's a lot of my exes or guys that I dated in the past that I wouldn't even today give the time of day just because of who I am now.
Same.
And before, it was more of a void, whether it was a void I was trying to fill or time or just, my own selfish reasons of, keeping that person around or being in that relationship.
Yeah, totally.
But now that I'm who I am today, I don't even know if half those people would get that time. That's
a very good point. And I'll kind of echo that. I'll steal that a little bit because that's actually an answer I would give as well. The person that I am today, there are a lot of exes that I would not have had as a girlfriend. And then
you think you were trying to fill a void?
Well,
or were you trying to fill a piece to your puzzle?
No, I was trying to distract myself from working on myself. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who are in those kind of relationships where it's if your partner is like nitpicking or always pointing the finger at you or putting the spotlight on you, like just be aware of this simple thing. They may just be hiding from themselves. They may just be distracting.
Really
instead of walking to the mirror themselves, they're walking you to the mirror. And they're saying, you fix you because we said you need to fix you, right?
Yeah.
And that person's like, yeah, you're right. And the other person's walking back like, I don't have to do me.
Yeah.
So it's tough. The truth hurts sometimes. This is probably hard for a lot of people to hear. And we are able to sit here today to talk about this because we've done the hard looks in the mirror. We continue to do the hard looks in the mirror and the work.
Yeah. I think it's easy to, when you come out of a relationship, to just come out pointing the finger at that person. And I think that
I did.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say, to hear everything you're saying now, to going back to when we first started getting to know each other. That was one thing that bothered me about you because I was on that level of awareness and stuff that I'm like, you said so much like negative stuff about your ex and then you would also follow up by saying, I don't fear commitment. I fear wasting my time.
Yeah.
And for me, I feel like you can never waste your time because sometimes the worst relationships or the most challenging relationships will help you grow
the most. Yeah.
So I think so do you really waste your time if you're actually allowing yourself that growth?
Wasting time, I would now not say that as I did in the past. Like you said, I wouldn't say wasting my time. What I would say is I think you're limiting yourself to what else is out there. That's kind of how I would say it. Yeah. Sometimes you stay in something longer than it needs to be, and so I think you're limiting yourself and you're blocking your blessings. You're blocking your future partner. You're blocking your future dream job. You're blocking your future. I finally have that relationship with my mother or my friend or whatever it is. You know what I mean? So nothing is now in hindsight, I realize that nothing is a waste of time. It's all a lesson. And thank God. And this is going to be crazy for you to hear this. As you said before, I used to have nothing but negative things to say about my ex. Thank God I went through what I went through with her.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't be sitting on this couch in this house with you. I wouldn't. I know that I would not be.
And that makes me feel so good to hear you say that because I think there's always, number one, there's always two sides to a story.
For
and
sure.
I think that you, as you admit now, you never gave her the best version of yourself. And that probably created a lot of insecurities for her in that relationship and even something that she could possibly be carrying into, her next relationship. And I think that it's important for her to have that closure in a sense and to know that, cause you manipulated her in a lot in ways and that's hard for a girl to get past it. So
Totally,
I think that when I always say, in the end, it will always make sense why nothing else ever worked out.
Yeah, totally. So maybe that kind of sums up the episode. I think like that's really good.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, we can go on and on about
Yeah.
diving into other aspects of
Yeah.
our relationship, and
Yeah, but there's plenty more to come. Like this is going to be a regular thing for you guys.
yeah,
If you're listening or watching, just know like this is the start of many. What'd you call it on the couch?
home series.
Home series. Yeah. Home series on the couch. It's going to be
with our dog.
He's alive, by the way. If you're watching, our dog is alive. He's just chilled out right now. And the garbage was supposed to be Tuesdays. Today's Thursday. I don't know what's happening. This is just what happened. So, I do want to end with, and maybe we do this with our home series.
Okay.
This is like off script, but I think something just to leave everybody with, you know, like kind of a take home from the home series.
Take home.
You like that?
Like little homework, or just take home.
Take homework
Some
or
JD gems.
But yeah, all the above, right?
Davis gems.
Yeah.
Okay, so go.
You want me to go first? I think the homework assignment is, and this is again about how you know your person's the one. For me personally, I knew Shay was worth fighting for and fighting with. And my homework assignment to you, I guess, would be ask yourself that question. Especially the guys, because I know how it is, guys. Like, is she, if I'm going to be with one girl for the rest of my life, she better be worth it kind of thing. Like, I don't even know how does that sound bad? Does that sound messed? It's the truth. That's what I'm going to say. It is the truth. And I'm not saying every guy thinks like me, but from a male's perspective, that's how I'm feeling. She better be worth it. You know what I'm saying? So I would just ask yourself that question. Mm-hmm. Is this person worth it? It's not if, it's when something's going to happen. Do you think that you guys are going to be able to cross that road together, as you used the metaphor earlier on? That's one homework assignment. The other homework assignment is, and I would challenge the guys especially to do this, are you being consistent with the work that everyone knows, including yourself, that you need to be doing? Mm-hmm. Ask yourself that question. Take that hard look in the mirror. Can I be better? Mm-hmm. Are there things that I can do to not only better myself, but then better my relationship and better other relationships? Like, you have to ask yourself that question every now and then, where it's easy to just go through the motions in life. You know, every now and then you got to do a hard check-in. Yeah. So those are kind of my homework assignments.
Yeah, I think too, I would suggest like digging deep into yourself and creating awareness and thinking back on the last like few relationships that someone's had, and just really think at when you were put at that crossroad. Yeah. Did you give up because of the work that it entailed to move forward, or did you give up because you had real reasons to you know, you guys were just for whatever reason just not seeing eye to eye or aligning with one another in the ways that you needed to move forward? I think thinking back onto those relationships and figuring out, why did I walk away from this? Was it because it's too much work? And really digging deep into yourself in that moment and figuring out how in the next relationship you could challenge yourself a little bit more to do the work, because at the end of the day, it's going to benefit you. Whether that person deserves that work, you deserve that work. Exactly.
And you know you're capable of doing the work. That's something that that's so good, love, that you said that. My therapist, I remember where I was, February 2017. I was in my car at the dry cleaner. And he used to always say, like, you're always 1 foot in and 1 foot out of the door. Why? And I said, because I'm scared to waste my time. It was back to the time thing, right? And he said, but you're never going to know if it's quote unquote a waste of time unless you give it your all. And I was like, oh, wow. Huh. That makes perfect sense. You know, so he taught me that is a win-win scenario.
And you will never have to worry about having regret.
Exactly. Oh, well said, honey. Okay. Lastly, I would like to ask you, and please ask me.
Me or?
I'm going to ask you. No, you and I, this is for us. You know, because I was thinking about the homework assignment thing, and I was like, wait a second, like, I need to ask myself that question. Like, how can I be better? So I'm asking you, as my wife, how can I be better as a husband today? Are there things that you've been kind of feeling like, he used to do that, doesn't do it anymore? Or are there things that you're like, I really hope he continues to improve in this category? Is there anything that you would like me to work on? Because this is going to hold me accountable if all these people are watching and listening.
And I'm so not good with thinking of stuff like that on the spot. Like, I need some time. I need to process that.
Okay.
I don't know.
I can tell you what I'd like you to work on.
I'm sure you can.
Give yourself some time to think.
Go ahead.
I think the main thing is listen to understand instead of listening to reply. And I think knowing your childhood and your upbringing and your past relationships, I know how it is. That independent, I call you independent Shay. Yeah. There she goes again. I'm not even here. So just try to listen to understand more. So
I think that's a pretty universal one. I think everybody naturally listens to defend and justify,
and over-explain
all of that. And I think that's something that just you could work on, I could work on, everybody could work on, because I think it's important. Yeah. I think the best thing that works for us, I think, and probably for a lot of people, if take a moment. When you're feeling attacked, when you're feeling challenged, take a moment to regroup your thoughts. Yeah. Because naturally we want to go into survival mode, whatever that means, whether it's like to defend ourselves or justify our actions. Yeah. I think taking a moment is really important, whether it's you go for a walk, you step out, you go to the other bedroom.
And for me, taking a moment, what that means to me is like reminding myself who I'm with. You're not just some girlfriend. Yeah. You're not just some girl I'm dating. Like, you're my wife. I need to remind myself sometimes of who I'm having a disagreement with and what's not just best for my little relationship, what's best for my marriage. You know what I'm saying? So it's that for me is definitely like, Jay-Z says sometimes you got to remind these fools who they're messing with. I'll use a PG.
honor your partner's feelings as much as you honor your own feelings, because I think that a lot of times we get stuck in our own feelings that we forget to honor our partner's feelings, and whether we agree with their feelings or not, or if it's something that would make us feel the way that they're feeling. The point is they're feeling how they're feeling. And I think it's just so important to honor their feelings and try to come to a resolution off of that. Yeah.
And a compromise off of that.
And not just be like, you're crazy for thinking that way,
Yeah. And also like, you can't argue with how someone feels. No. That's how they feel. That's like rhetorical. You know what I'm saying? Like we talked about this earlier on the episode, how, you were saying what seems so big to me in my life, in my childhood. You were like, word? Like, can I tell you what I consider a big thing? So, but that doesn't negate or dismiss that it is still a big thing for me. And it's still a big thing for you, or a little thing for you. And there's a lot of times where I'm like, what? Like, babe, this is nothing. Our life's never going to get easier than this. All we have is our little four-legged son here. This is nothing. Yeah. Like, wait till we have kids running around here. Like, that's,
I think there's a difference too, to whether because obviously you never want to dismiss your partner's feelings. Right. Whether you can try to help them refocus their feelings. That's the difference, because as much as I tell you what you went through as your childhood, like I don't want to dismiss those feelings, but maybe let me highlight the positive things that just to help you broaden your focus, and not only focus in, because it's when we naturally want to focus on the negative things, as sad as that is. Like when you walked away from your last relationships, it was easy to just remind yourself of all the negative things as to why that person wasn't the one. But I think, or just growing up in our childhood, focusing on the negative things. I think it's just like, for me, if I could help my partner, like not dismiss his feelings, but help him focus on like a broader range of things.
So I think you just answered my question. I asked you, how can I be better as a husband? And you answered, and I'm good. And I have to do a better job at that. I do. I have to do a better job of uplifting you, of being sensitive to your sensitivities, of being more understanding of what you are going through. I think it's little sometimes when you're complaining about things. I'm like, and vice versa. What is the problem, man? Exactly. Like, I could do this in my sleep. You know what I'm saying? But that doesn't help you. That's not a solution. So I need to either help you see how to solve this in your sleep, or listen to let you vent it out. You know what I'm saying? Without passing judgment, or without just dismissing and be like, really, that's it? So I think you answered
Oh, good.
I mean, you can give more.
No,
but
that's great.
I definitely feel that I can definitely improve in that department.
Mm-hmm.
So I will work on that for sure. Anything else I need to?
No,
Because you're making it seem like I'm just the best thing since sliced bread.
No, I think that would be the perfect thing for you to work on is sometimes I think you get so, especially when you're already have your mind made up on something in a negative way, whether it's work, whether it's a friend or your family member or whatever, you tunnel in so much on just like the negative part of them or thing. Yeah. And you lose sight of like what to really be grateful for. Yeah.
I would definitely work on that for sure. And I'm sure what's going to happen is we're going to stop the cameras and you're going to have a whole list of things for me to work on. But we'll have it in the next episode. And maybe we end every episode with us in our home series on the couch of just, how can I be better? How can you be better? How can our marriage be better? So this was a ton of fun. I really, I'm a lot of people don't know this, but I filmed like 10 episodes, I think, before I launched my first one. It's like my perfectionism, imposter syndrome thing happening. But my point is that I feel so much more comfortable throughout each episode. And obviously I feel comfortable with you. We're in our house. It's different. But something was telling me to make sure you and I do some kind of series on this show. Because
we also get questions.
We get questions all the time. And I'm like, I definitely respond to all of them. I know you do too, but I'm like, how can we try to take advantage of a mass amount of people in one setting? You know what I mean? So this is going to help out a lot of people.
Too, it's important for people to see that it's not always a cookie cutter relationship. And there's so many, I wouldn't want people to, see our relationship from afar and be like, why don't I have that?
Exactly.
And I rather them really know what it took to have it and the constant work and challenges that we've come to face to get to where we are.
Yeah, that's very important for me. That's why we're not in the studio. Yeah. That's why we're at home, because I was like, I'm just really trying to get people to understand, like, I know everyone thinks a relationship and marriage is so perfect. And I'm like, what? Not that it's couldn't be farther from that, but it's not perfect. We do go through some ups and downs, and that's what we're going to be talking about here throughout this series. So plenty more to come.
And you know what I'm going to do for you, babe?
Uh-oh.
I'm going to get a shirt made with your towel dropping photo on it.
Well, come on, man. Out of my 15-year modeling career, you're going to pick that photo. But yeah, this is Shay.
And then I'm going to put on the back, he is my husband.
Yeah. You got to tell people why that's...
Well, I said earlier, I saw that photo and I was like, that is not my husband.
But tell them what my contact info was in your phone.
For the longest, it was constantly evolving. Like, it was just not my husband. And then it was just maybe my husband. Just quite possibly. And then just... I can't remember what I did when we were engaged. Just my husband.
Damn.
So there you are.
Well, anyways, for everyone watching, I know you guys can see the shirt. If you're listening, go to the YouTube page and you can see what I'm wearing. It's a shirt with Shay on it.
I have someone on my shirt, just not you.
Oh yeah, shout out to your shirt. Let's get real quick. This is from Anna. I'm gonna put her info in here. She makes these super dope T-shirts. That's so Tupac. Soft. I have my shirt as well. We were going to wear it together, but we were like, maybe for the home series, the first one.
I was like, can we not be twins?
People are really going to hate us. So I was like, let's switch it up a little bit. But shout out to Anna and these super dope tie-dye T-shirts. There's plenty that she makes that are super cool. So
they're very soft too. I love them.
Yeah. So, and they're unisex, obviously, because again, I have it too. So I'll link her stuff. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for listening. If you're listening, this is one of very many. And also, if this was relatable to you guys, please let us know how and why. Let us know if you'd like to hear anything else or any other topics you want us to discuss. And if this wasn't really relatable to you in any kind of way, but maybe you know someone that it was, please share it with them. I mean, this is the point of this is just helping people, whether it's you or someone that you know. So this is us signing off. Honey, I love you. I thank you. Me. This is our show, babe.
Okay.
Thanks for having me. It's both. I appreciate you. I actually learned a little bit today.
Really?
Yeah,
I love that.
Learned a little bit. So I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for you, and I'm excited for everyone to see and get to know what I have seen and known now for
Mm-hmm.
3+ years. So
Thank you.
get used to talking in front of the cameras and on the mic.
So how often are we doing this?
We'll see. Anyways, thanks guys for joining.